nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 And are not afraid to say it.
And are not afraid to say it. That's right. Welcome everyone. Good afternoon. Good evening. This is your guest host today, Dr. Bob Baskerville, a.k.a. Ph.D., filling in for the Venerable A.J. Woodson, who unfortunately couldn't be with us today. As many of our listeners know, A.J. is taking a short spell in the hospital convalescing. We want to extend on his behalf his gratitude for all the well wishes, and I want everyone to know that we are looking forward to him returning to his rightful place next week. Along with me, I have the lovely Lorraine Lopez.
Hey.
In the house. And in addition to that, we have a number of guests who are lined up. We're expecting Damon Jones to come in shortly, and in addition to that, we'll have some additional guests later on. Why don't you give us a rundown?
Yeah. We have Shanae Williams. The Honorable Shanae Williams, who's the Councilwoman for the 1st District in the city of Yonkers. Accompanying her will be Hector Santiago, our main man, a friend of the show from Stop and Shake. And then we have, of course, Andrew Falk from the Working Families Party with us today as well.
Solidarity, my brothers and sisters.
Amen.
Welcome, Andy. It's good to be with you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
To have you back in the studio with us once again to talk about the important political developments of the day. We ready to jump in, Lorraine?
Yeah. But first, I just want to give another shout out to to AJ. Went to see him today. He's looking good. He appreciates everyone. If everyone wants to know where he's at, he did say it's okay to say that he was at Lawrence Hospital in Bronxville, room 311. If anybody wants to give him a call, he's got over 250 messages. He posted yesterday that he was in, and within less than a couple of hours, he had over 250 messages of well wishes. And he really, really appreciates that. So once again, thank you all for sharing your concern for him. And he will be back next Sunday.
Great. Very good.
Okay, so we had a couple of things happen this week, right? One of the things that happened, we're going to let Damon talk to us about it, or we're going to share that he did a big endorsement this week.
Oh, you can go ahead and
Damon,
sure we'll have an
Damon, and he'll be here to talk about it. He did a big endorsement this week with the several different organizations of black law enforcement officials and Hispanic law enforcement officials got together in New Rochelle, along with Tasha. From the LPAN, LPAN, and they all gave a huge endorsement of Shelley Meyer for Senate this week as well.
Right now, Shelley is the choice of progressives who's running for a state Senate seat. The reason, Andy, that you're here to speak is for related matter, and that's for the endorsement that the Working Family Party just extended to
Cynthia Nixon. Yes, the Working Families Party has also endorsed Shelley Mayer. We urge everyone to vote on this Tuesday in the special election, the 24th. And last week, on Saturday, the Working Families Party, our state committee voted to endorse Cynthia Nixon for governor of the state of New York. And the election is this November. She will be running a primary against Andrew Cuomo, a Democratic primary, which would be September 13th.
Okay, now I got to tell you, I was, although I recognize Miss Nixon from her appearance on the silver screen, the small screen, I was unaware of her political
work,
interests,
yes.
and ambitions, and but one thing that a really stunning statement or very provocative statement that she did make, I guess, to launch her campaign was an announcement of her support of legalization of marijuana in New York State, and I thought it was a rather interesting YouTube video that she released in order to provide a rationale for it.
You know, it's very interesting because Governor Cuomo has been very late to the table on moving on legalizing marijuana, and even though we have a very reluctant medical marijuana program in the state of New York, which has fallen short in every single way, after Cynthia Nixon said that she supports legalized marijuana, this past week, the governor said the times have changed and he would be open to legalizing marijuana himself. So I want to congratulate Cynthia Nixon on once again moving Andrew Cuomo to the left.
I'm waking him up.
And you know what, Cynthia Nixon, she talks about legalizing marijuana as a form of racial justice because she talks about the racial inequality of the prosecution of people who are caught possessing marijuana. And she put it in terms that white people, people that look like me, people that look like Cynthia, if we get caught with marijuana, we don't wind up with a criminal conviction. When black and brown people are caught with marijuana, and the rates of usage statistically are about the same with the white population and the African American and Latino populations, it's about the same, but 80% of black and brown people that are caught with pot wind up with some sort of criminal conviction, and it's a form of racial inequality. This is a social justice issue, the legalization of marijuana, and personally, if there is legalization of marijuana and there is not, at the very least, absolute pardons for people who have been convicted of simple possession of marijuana, it would be a travesty, because there have been people whose lives have been set on an absolute altered course because they happened to possess marijuana, and that's wrong. And also this week, great week, Chuck Schumer said he's in favor of decriminalizing marijuana, and he actually has a bill in the Senate, but you know it's probably not going to go anywhere because it's a Republican-controlled U.S. Senate, U.S. Congress.
Now, I know that one of the reasons why some policymakers and elected officials are reluctant to see the decriminalization or legalization of marijuana is because of the claim that it's a gateway drug. Although there doesn't seem to be any consistent evidence to support that. What there does seem to be consistent evidence is that it is the criminalization of the use of marijuana is a gateway to prison, and very often long periods of incarceration. And in that sense, I think your observation and Ms. Dixon's decision to oppose criminalization is long overdue.
Yeah, it's it goes back to social justice, to racial justice, and it's a bold stance, and I congratulate her on it. And she was even asked this week, "Have you ever smoked marijuana?" And she acknowledged to have smoked marijuana twice.
And she inhaled.
And I guess I mean, but it's just like it's not even like she's a regular user, but she just felt that this is the right thing to do. And if you look at the polls, you have 60% of the adult population who thinks that marijuana should be decriminalized. This is a no-brainer. I mean, we're in 2018, and statistically, it's a gateway drug in the same way that drinking milk is a gateway drug. We every person who gets addicted to heroin drank milk as a child. It's not, marijuana is not, all it does is it leads to the munchies. It doesn't, it's not a gateway drug to harder drugs.
You're right, it does lead to the munchies because I suffer from anorexia. I just recently gained a good 55 pounds. And when my last brother was killed, when I get very, very stressed out, my anorexia kicks in. I was down to 86 pounds, and the doctors gave me pure THC in order for me to gain some weight. And that is what, I'm not taking it right now. Well, not pure THC from the doctors, but that saved my life. It saved my life.
Listen, it's great. And, listen, I have known people that have suffered with cancer. And, just the fact that Governor Cuomo has made it so difficult to even prescribe medical marijuana in New York State, I don't know. The guy is always trying to figure out how to do as little as possible when it comes to social, progressive, just the right thing to do. If it's not in his corporate donors' interests, he takes a pass on it.
Well, before we proceed, I want to uphold the A.J. Woodson tradition by taking a moment to give greetings to those who have logged in on Facebook to join us. And so let me say a welcome to Tanya Van Norman, Omi Medina Senior. And I have to say that Ms. Van Norman has made a comment that's somewhat critical of legalization policies, and she says drugs and alcohol destroy families, whether it's legal or not. Carnage on our highways, we need to get high on life. Any thoughts, any response?
There have been families that have been destroyed absolutely by drugs and alcohol, and I think that everybody knows somebody that was led down the wrong path by a variety of things. And I've known people that got into the pot culture, and it diverted them from more productive pursuits.
In what sense? What do you mean by that?
Well, I've known people that like pot became their thing, and instead of like I had a dear friend in high school that moved to California because he wanted to get a medical marijuana card, and he did. He was a healthy guy, and he is a healthy guy, thank God. It's not, you could make poor choices with a lot of different things, and some people can certainly use it as a crutch or use it as an excuse not to be the most productive person they can be. For some people. But it doesn't, some people can use anything in that regard. Some people, are painfully shy. Some people are extreme risk takers. And so, there are a lot of personality quirks that come into certain things. Marijuana is it's not harmful if in the same way that alcohol is harmful, and it doesn't cause car accidents the way
that's what I was going to ask you. Yeah.
That alcohol does. If you look in Colorado, there have not been any negative repercussions of legalizing marijuana, and that's probably been the most successful large-scale legalization we've had in the country, and it's increased tax revenue. It's what it does is it takes the criminality out of it. You're able to buy it legally. You don't have to go to people that might be involved in other illegal activity to get marijuana. There's a lot of societal benefits. And here's the thing: the war on drugs has not been effective. It hasn't eliminated any drugs. It's caused a lot of people to go to jail. It's created a school to prison pipeline. It is not good for society. The war on drugs has been a war on black and brown people, and it needs to stop. We need to have diversionary programs. We need to pardon people who have been convicted of marijuana possession. And this is, we can have a difference of opinion about it, but then you don't have to smoke pot. You could just mind your own business when it comes to what other people do when it doesn't hurt anyone else.
Right. I mean, and I just do want to add that decriminalization of marijuana should not be confused with legalization of marijuana, nor the endorsement of its use. I think those who are calling for a change in policy with respect to the treatment of marijuana are doing so precisely because they recognize that the social good of trying to prohibit the use of marijuana has been eclipsed by all of the adverse social consequences of an unceasing war on drugs that seems to more likely to bring persons of color, especially males of color, into criminal networks, and also may place on them a permanent stigma against getting a job once they're convicted that, on balance doesn't seem to be really promoting, benefits to society.
Listen, we need to let all the people who have been convicted of marijuana out of jail, so we have more room for crooked bankers and politicians. That's what
I couldn't agree more. I got a couple of people who
Okay, go ahead.
high on my list. Can I just say before you jump in, I do want to also give a welcome to Frank Trulio, Uncle Frank. Ken Bright just joined us, and also Damon Jones is out there somewhere on Facebook. D, what up?
What up, Damon?
Get in the studio, man.
Hurry up, bro. No, I was going to say, what do you tell the people, though, that all those people that fought so that people wouldn't smoke cigarettes in certain areas and because of the smoke? Because I've heard people say, if you legalize marijuana, then I'm going to have to, every time I walk out my building or every time I have to go to the park or every time I go this way, I'm going to have to pass by a whole bunch of smoke, and I don't want that for me or my children. What do you say to them?
Listen, people. When I walk around New York City, I pass people smoking pot pretty regularly. It's already happening. Except some people are going to jail for it, and it's behavior that people are engaging in. I'm not saying it's a healthy behavior. Listen, I'm not here to defend people's individual behavior one way or the other. And I think that it's certainly not as healthy as going for a jog in the park. But I just think that the social justice, rationale that, police are using it as a pretext to arrest people that don't look like me, and that's wrong, and it needs to stop. And if the only way to do it is to decriminalize it, then we need to do it. The war on drugs, the war on pot, has not worked, and it's created terrible inequalities in our society, and it's not the right way to do anything.
I mean, I do want to add also, Lorraine, that if marijuana use was decriminalized, then that means the regulation of its use and consumption by other members of society could be managed with some of the tools that you just mentioned, fiscal policy, tax policy, for example, to dissuade people, make it expensive enough where you could dissuade people from indulging in it if you wanted to. That still might have the same effect, but without all of the social costs. I mean, even though tobacco use has long been known to be associated with a causal contributor to cancer and does serious harm to our community, we're not locking people up for it. Right? We are finding less severe measures to use to dissuade them, and so at least those options are opened up. If we decriminalize marijuana use, we can find other ways perhaps to regulate it. And so those things, regulation, decriminalization, in other words, is not antithetical to regulation.
Sure, and it's not saying everybody needs to smoke it either. I mean, it's just like, that's a good point right there. It's ubiquitous. Like people smoke it if they want to smoke it, and they don't if they don't. And it's not. I personally don't think that the more people are going to use it if people are using it.
Right, and a couple of more people have joined us. I want to give a shout out to my man Mike Holt, number one, my day one, as they would say, friend of mine forever. I'd also like to extend a warm welcome to Sean Patterson Howard, one of the real stalwarts of progressive politics in Mount Vernon.
And Yonkers.
And Yonkers. And in addition, we've got Kevin Bunch on the line. Jack Toon signed in, and Jack weighed in by saying it's the war on drugs is a war on black people. Now, we've given some consideration to Miss Dixon's opposite.
Nixon.
I'm sorry.
Nixon.
That's why I'm hesitant, because I keep on mixing it up in my own mind. I went through this yesterday with my aunt.
Because you don't want Sex in the City, that's why.
No, it's been a while, I must admit. We have a clear sense, or some sense, of what her policy is with respect to drug regulation. Are there any other significant policy proposals that
Good question.
are on the table that really distinguish her from the current incumbent? Governor
Yes,
Cuomo?
I think today's Earth Day, and I believe it was yesterday or Friday that she came out with a policy that for New York State by 2050, she wants us to be entirely on renewable energy. And, it's a bold proposal. And you know what? This is what I know. Whether it's achievable or not, if we don't say we want to get off fossil fuel and be entirely on renewable energy by 2050, we never will. It'll never happen unless someone takes the lead and says this needs to be a goal. We need to have a plan. And she gave she set a timeline and she set a goal. And I think it's bold and it's visionary and it's the type of leadership that we need in New York State. And I think it was great. And, it's likely that the governor will have his own proposal within a week to say he wants to do it by 2049. But you know what? Let me tell you something about leadership. A leader doesn't jump on the bandwagon when it's halfway down the street. So I'm Cynthia Nixon is a leader on this issue, and I give her a lot of credit.
One of the things that I saw about Cynthia Nixon, she was on the Wendy Williams show, and she was talking about Senator Andrew Stewart Cousins, and she was saying that right now, Governor Cuomo all of a sudden decided, because it's election time, that he's going to sit everybody together and try to bring some type of what do you call it? Some type of allegiance with everyone.
Right.
With everyone. Meanwhile, all these years, there's been 4 men in the room, and Andrea has not been able to sit with them. And she thinks that that's absurd, and she thinks that it's time for Andrea to step in there and be in that room. And now is not the time for Andrew Cuomo to just come out and say, oh, okay, now it's time for her to join us because he's coming in for an election.
Well, you know what? It's very interesting because it was about 2 weeks after the New York State budget was voted on. We had a budget plan that Andrew Cuomo brought the leaders of the IDC in with the mainline Democratic Conference and said it's time for this to end. And you know what? 2 weeks before, when they're negotiating the budget, Andrew Cuomo would not let Andrea Stewart Cousins in the room to negotiate the budget. And, Andrew Cuomo, he, upon our impending endorsement, like within a day or two before we endorsed, the Working Families Party, endorsed Cynthia Nixon, Andrew Cuomo unleashed an apocalypse of hatred upon the Working Families Party. And for 8 years, he never went after the independent Democratic Conference. He said, this is a Senate issue. They're co-equal branches of government. There's nothing I can do. But when he wanted unity among the Senate Democrats, he was able to do it. And had he used the bully pulpit that he has 8 years ago, he could have made this unity among the Senate Democrats come at any time he wanted to. He kept saying, there's nothing I can do. They're co-equal branches of government. Cynthia Nixon said it best. She said, when you set your house on fire and watch it burn for 8 years, you are not a hero when you turn on the hose. So once again, Andrew
You're an
Cuomo,
arsonist.
once again, Andrew Cuomo, he enabled these problems, and he turns on the Working Families Party in a way that he never turned on the Independent Democratic Conference. So I want to, you know, Cynthia Nixon is telling it like it is. And I know we have some new guests, and I before we get away from Cynthia Nixon, I know Andrew Cuomo watches this show.
Does he?
I'm gonna look right into the cameras, and let me tell you why Andrew Cuomo is scared of Cynthia Nixon. In the first 24 hours after she announced she's running for office, she got more small donor contributions, $200 or less, than Andrew Cuomo got in the previous 7 years. Cynthia Nixon has been endorsed not only by the Working Families Party, but by Citizen Action of New York, by Make the Road. Andrew Cuomo is telling people that if you fund these groups, you're going to lose my number. Andrew Cuomo is bullying the little guy. He takes corporate money hand over fist. He has not wanted to close the LLC loophole because he's a major beneficiary of it. Well, Andrew Cuomo, let me tell you this. The Working Families Party, we were formed to stand up to Wall Street, to stand up to the one percenters, to stand up to the bullies in the world, and you're not going to bully us. We will stand up to you too. And the people should not be afraid of the government. It is the government that should be afraid of the people, and that's
right.
why you are afraid of Cynthia Nixon, and that's why you're going to lose this battle.
That sound like it deserves some sort
A
of
round
clap.
of applause.
Something, man.
Come
Sound
on.
effects, right?
Donna Jackson said, remember, IDC is still fundraising separately for their membership. So is it really a together moment?
Right. I mean, while many people welcomed the effort on the part of Cuomo and other important state politicos to trying to resolve the internal divisions within the Democratic Party proper by getting rid of the IDC, many of us who heard the news that they were out there actively fundraising felt that they were sliding back in a kind of reversal of policy, and made you really wonder.
Within a week of the announcement, Andrew Cuomo was headlining their $5,000 a plate fundraiser. I thought it was disgusting.
All right, AJ is on. AJ is on watching. So everyone, hi, AJ.
Hey,
Love
Jay,
you.
what up?
Hey,
Hope you
bro.
feel better, bro.
He should be calling into the show because he can't stay away. This is his baby,
right.
so he's gonna be calling into the show, and he wants to make sure that we say that our Yonkers Councilwoman Shanae Williams, the Honorable Shanae Williams, is in the show today with us today, and also a friend of the show, a good friend of the show, Hector Santiago from Stop and Shake is also with us here as well.
Yeah, AJ, much love, brother, much love. Sending you much blessings.
AJ, listen, man. I don't know. I'm starting to feel more and more comfortable in the main seat, brother. I got to tell you. I know you're saying to yourself, I can take it over. I hear you.
AJ said, well said, Andy, by the way.
Thank you, AJ.
So anyway, I just want to welcome Councilwoman Shanae Williams to the show, and I want to welcome Hector Santiago to the show.
Thank you.
I know that one of the reasons that you folks are here, and we're going to be discussing a couple of things with you folks, but one of the reasons that you folks are here, which what piqued my interest was when Hector posted on Facebook that you guys have a mental health awareness walk going on in Yonkers. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Hello, everyone. This is Shanae, Councilman Shanae Williams. I'm very happy to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you. So Hector had reached out to me a few months ago that he wasn't going to walk to Albany like he did last year. Instead, he wanted to do a mental health walk. This was when I had done a women's awareness walk back in February.
I remember that.
So I thought, great, why not? Because I had other constituents come up to me and said that they wanted to do a suicide walk. And as you know, suicide is something that ties in with mental health. A lot of people who have mental conditions such as bipolar disorder, depression, and so on, they're the ones who have high substance abuse issues as well, who end up attempting suicide, and sometimes they're successful. And just for people who don't know, suicide is actually it's not the leading death, but it surpasses the deaths of homicide in the United States.
Wow.
It's the 10th
Didn't
leading
know that.
cause of
It's
death.
cross class, cross race.
Race, gender, age, socioeconomic status. It really doesn't matter. It's affecting everyone. And you and I, everyone here probably knows someone who has some kind of mental disorder.
Absolutely.
Whether it's
Everyone has a family
bipolar,
member too.
Right. Right. So I thought, great, let's do this. Let's bring awareness and let's show people that we care about them. And we know that this is an issue, especially in the United States of America, in Yonkers. And we want to tackle that locally and just bring awareness and let people know what's going on. And I hope that people come out and support us and walk with us because it's very important.
Now, when is this walk going to be? Where's it going to start? And what's the process? Where's it going to end?
So we've came together and we figured that we wanted people to kind of walk a mile in someone else's shoes, or walk a mile for someone who can't come out and walk a mile. So we figured we'll start at the Chima Center on Riverdale Avenue.
That's where the third precinct is, right?
Yeah, the third precinct.
435
it's on 435 Riverdale Avenue.
Okay.
It's the Senior Community Center. And we're going to start there. We're meeting up at 10 a.m. and we're walking down to the daylighting off of the Larkin Plaza almost.
Okay, so where exactly is it going to end?
At the daylighting. Right
Vanderbilt
across from
Park.
For people that don't know what the
Park.
dayland, okay.
Vanderbilt Park.
Vanderbilt
right
Park,
across
okay.
From the Metro North Station. It's where the river's opening and the sawmill. It's gonna, we're hoping for great weather. So the Yonkers bid has been super awesome. They're gonna supply us down there with a nice little setup with a podium. We have some spoken word artists who are gonna come and kind of perform
awesome.
something around mental health. And then we just wanted to be a big community networking event. We have a bunch of organizations who have already signed up to participate. They're going to be handing out resources. We're going to have some therapists who are walking around, offering services and setting up appointments, and just overall really let Yonkers know that together we can come and make a change. Right now we have the Bravehearts who are being part of it. It's run by Jessica Grimm and her whole team. They're doing amazing work around foster care and the systematic oppression that we kind of go through. She deals a lot with couch surfers. They're getting national attention. They're getting national attention, but we're trying to bring more attention locally since they're right here based out of Yonkers. We got the PAL involved. The PAL has been super awesome. Shout out to Malvina and Ashley, who has really been helping me set everything up.
Melvina Carter?
Yeah.
Okay,
Malvina's
okay.
doing her thing over there. And Vic, too, he's been doing great running the whole spot. Shout out to Victor. We got the whole city council involved, which is awesome. No matter what's their political view, every one of them are going to be there because they all support the whole mental health aspect of the walk.
Is the mayor going to be there?
The mayor said he's going to try his best to be there. He has all the information. He's the mayor of the city. He has hundreds of events. So if he doesn't make it, I would love for him to make it, but I'm sure he'll probably send some type of representative. So, but yeah, he's been on board with everything. Mike Hector, city council president, Shanae, has been super receptive to everything.
Well, Shanae's a co-sponsor, correct?
Right.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
and she's the council for the first district where I'm at. So, and
And
we're
where the
finishing.
walk is taking place.
Right. And where most of the issues, downtown Yonkers, we have the sharing community, we have the YMCA, the Department of Social Service, everything in one. We got the gentrification, we have the projects, we have everything in the first district.
Get in touch with my sister's place, too.
Right.
That
So,
would be
there's
an awesome
a lot of
organization,
organizations. If you're watching this, man, reach out to us.
And join us.
Keep this
Yeah,
closer to
come
you,
out.
so people can hear
Sorry,
you.
yeah. If you're out there, man, come join us. Reach out to us. Walk with us. And this is for the city.
And Hector, one more time, what date is the walk taking place?
May 12th.
May
12th. Saturday, May 12th.
At what
10
time?
a.m.
Okay, 10 a.m.
10 a.m. We'll definitely share a flyer with you. Yeah, share it on the page or something.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add about the walk and anything?
No, I guess we'll probably need some volunteers to come out and actually create some signs, so that as
that'd
we
be
walk,
cool.
bring your kids
Oh, that'll
out.
be cool.
So reach out to me at my office. You can call 377-6311. Trying to get used to the numbers, but it's 914-377-6311. Call my office, speak to my assistant, or you'll probably speak to me because I like to answer my phone myself as well.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we want you guys to come out and support this. It's a huge deal. It's our first one here in Yonkers that we're doing, so we know it's going to be a fun time too. You know, when we do these walks, we have fun with it. You know, it doesn't have to be something that it's a chore. It's, you know, it's a fun way to raise awareness and to bring the community together and to bring out just to show support to our friends and families and our neighbors.
Councilwoman, let me ask you a question. For one, let me applaud you for the spearheading the effort to raise consciousness about the growing epidemic of suicide across the United States, but especially in communities of color. I think my reading of some headlines has suggested that we've seen a remarkable uptick in suicides amongst communities of color that have, at least until rather recently, tended to be somewhat immune from at least this particular health issue.
Right.
So, so as important as raising consciousness is, I'm curious to know if you and the rest of the city council have what kind of policy proposals have you been considering banding about to kind of institutionalize some of the preventive programs that I know that you have in mind and that you'd like to see come to the city of Yonkers?
By the way, that's Dr. Bob, and he's a professor, and he's going to have a lot of big words.
That's all right.
I'm just trying to...
Usually I'm up here like looking in the dictionary trying to find out what it is that he's trying to say.
Right. That's a really good question, Dr. Bob. Thank you. So, unfortunately, we haven't proposed any legislation as yet, other than the resolution to announcing that May is Mental Health Awareness Month.
Okay.
However, as far as policy goes, we really haven't done anything as yet as a council. But we're always open to ideas. If you have an idea, you think there's something that the community needs, and you want to bring it to us. I'm young and I'm new at this, so I want all the help I can get. Reach out to me. Let me know what your ideas are. We can take it step by step and go from there.
Councilwoman, I'm not so young anymore. No, I got ideas, I'm sure. Those of you bowing out.
Right.
No, I was me.
No, but I'm pretty sure we have a good council now. You know, we have a pretty strong council. Elections is over.
Well, John Rubo, hey, I worked with him for 20 years.
Can I just say also that something that's extremely important to the Black community, to the Black and Spanish community in Yonkers is education, right? We know that there's the Rebuild Yonkers School campaign, and we need about $2 billion to complete this project. And there's a lot that goes into it, and it's so important when you talk about what policies we can do or what it is that we're doing to help raise awareness or help deal with anything mental health related. It goes back to education, because our students, our kids in our schools, they need psychologists, they need they need the therapists on site, which they're lacking. They need to be in the environment where they can be successful, and that's within our schools. And right now, they don't have that, not 100%. So I know everyone on the council, political parties aside, we all agree that our students need to be in our public schools, need to be in the best space to learn and to develop and to grow. And so we're going to continue to fight for the funds for that, because we want to ensure that they have that opportunity. That's what it's about. And when they do have that opportunity, we'll be able to hire, hopefully in the future, we're hoping to get the funds so that we can hire more school psychologists and hire more guidance counselors and hire more teachers and make sure that our students are well equipped to move on and, go into the world and be successful.
I saw something very disturbing, or I read something very disturbing about Yonkers schools, that they're facing hundreds of layoffs.
200
and
layoffs.
When you said even guidance counselors, I hope I'm wrong, that I misremember this, that there's like 1,000 students per guidance counselor. I mean, that's
It is extremely disproportionate. Absolutely, you're not wrong in that. And while I haven't had a chance, we didn't get the proposal from the superintendent as yet for what his budget looks like.
You haven't got it yet?
The mayor did propose his budget, and we know that we're looking at about close to 200 layoffs from the BOE side alone. There's 187 that the mayor proposed to lay off on the city side. So we have a really tough budget ahead of us, and with we've gone to Albany and asked for funds, but unfortunately we're not going to be able to receive much help from Albany this year as we've done in the past. But that's why we have to work together and come up with new ideas. I don't know if the unions are going to be helpful in any way, but from what I know, we're going to have conversations with them, and hopefully we can find some route to bring some resolution, because it's really tough. We cannot afford to lay off close to 400 people. We certainly cannot afford to lay off our teachers and counselors and administrators within our Board of Education. Like I said, education is important, and we need our kids to have these resources if they're going to be successful. So it's something that we're going to have to work on together.
A lot of them the majority of them are minority children too, that really, really, really do need the resources, especially when it ties into mental health, because parents and children with ADHD and so and so.
She said to piggyback off of is the education, the lack of education, not only in the schools, the education of mental health within our communities. Right. And there's not enough programming being offered in our community. There's people walking around with depression and things that they don't even know they're carrying, systematic, or it just through their families trickle down. And I think even it's just weird how the system works right now. So someone at the sharing community goes, stays there, gets in a cot by 10 o'clock, gets to bed 11 maybe, and then by 5, 6 in the morning they have to leave. No programs open till about 9. They'll get ticketed if they're walking around. So it's just and then some of these people are actually have mental illnesses, schizophrenic, and chemical imbalances that make them not active members of our community, and we have to be there for them also. So I think we definitely need more funding for places like the Sharing Community, YMCA,
Jewish Council of Yonkers,
the Jewish Council. These are organizations, my sister's place, who are dealing mostly with these individuals. So, I mean, coming from up top, we definitely need more funding. But I would definitely love to see the community members come together, because that helps. I know one of the quotes that I always push around is it definitely takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a bunch of loving relationships to create a village. And that's where we really need to get back to. Because some of us have the resources that somebody else's need, right? At any point.
Good point.
And enough handouts become shareable. So, it's really that community aspect. And then us coming together and getting the right people elected. Because if we don't get the right people elected, I mean, it goes in through one ear, out the other. We can scream till our face turns blue, and nothing's going to get, done. So definitely, keep in touch with who's running in your local cities, and pay attention, man. Pay attention.
Speaking about running and electing people, I have a couple of questions for the Councilwoman. I have a couple of questions for you as well. But I wanted to ask the Councilwoman a question. Barry McGooey, the president of the Firefighters Union, was here last Sunday, and we spoke about a couple of things. One of the things we discussed about was term limits, and that the possibility of Mayor Spano possibly wanting to overturn term limits in Yonkers. And I know that you are very close to the mayor. And I just wanted to know, what was your opinion? What did you think about overturning term limits? And if the vote came out to be, would you vote for or against it?
I think term limits is something that the people should decide. I don't think it should be left up to the council. And it's just as easy as they decided that they wanted term limits years ago, and they did vote on the back of the ballot saying that they wanted to implement term limits here in Yonkers. If we want to change that, I think we have to go back to them and again put that on the ballot and let them decide. As far as Mayor Spano staying on for another term, I haven't had that conversation with him. I don't think it's something that he's interested in personally, but that would be a question for Mayor Spano. So.
Okay. If he would come here, because we invited him several times, but that's just another. That's something else.
I did want to add that one reason why the council might consider not taking up the issue of term limits is because it would be in a very pronounced conflict of interest.
Right.
To have to weigh in on a matter that could affect one's livelihood as a general matter. You recuse yourself from those kind of questions, and it seems like here this would be a especially good idea, since the whole idea of term limits is to make sure that we don't have a deep entrenchment of a permanent political force, and it seems like the mayor would not be respecting the last time that people expressed their wishes on this matter. I did want to come back to the issue of the suicide. While I think it's very important that we have a supportive political environment and elected officials who are advancing a progressive agenda, I think that especially when it comes to questions of educational policy, the recent upsurge in wildcat strikes in some of the red states in the Midwest and
what's wildcat strikes? Was that?
And the one in Kentucky,
West Virginia.
West Virginia.
The first teacher strike that started recently was in West Virginia. There have been strikes in Oklahoma. There have been strikes in Kentucky, and just within the past 2 days, teachers in Arizona voted to strike. And it's, you know what, the labor movement has taken some hits recently, and I think they're going to keep on coming with a Supreme Court decision that is likely to hurt labor unions. But the labor movement is, you know, for every step back that we take, there are people out there organizing, and there are people coming together. And let me tell you, I was very energized and encouraged this past winter when I was walking the streets of East New York in Brooklyn, organizing fast food workers for fast food justice. And, you know, some of the lowest paid workers, some of the workers that we all interact with, and, you know, we don't give much thought to the people behind the counter that are serving us their meals. There's some real good work going on in New York City right now with fast food justice, and to bring together the fast food workers into their own organization where they could parlay the strength of people working together into getting better working conditions when they deal with management. So, and you know what? Listen, there are others. New York has some very strong labor protections, and in places like West Virginia and Oklahoma and Arizona and Kentucky, where there aren't, people are getting together and they're saying, you know, this isn't the middle class we were promised as we were growing up. I worked hard, I went to school, I got a job. Why am I falling further and further behind every day? And it's, listen, the people have the power, and it's about all of us coming together and saying we need to change our government, we need to change our future. And listen, I am very committed to the labor movement. I am very committed to community organizations. Nothing bad is going to happen to me. I worry about my kids. I have a son who's about to turn 15. I have another son who's 10 and a half. And I worry about them, and I worry about their future, and everybody like them. I'm so glad that we have. I don't want to be dismissive.
Beautiful and young
She's
people,
gorgeous,
but younger than me certainly. But like, thank you for stepping up and being both of you being leaders in your community.
He's handsome.
And you know what? When just to talk about term limits, here's one of the most disturbing things, and this just is in general. I'm not talking about Yonkers specifically, but in the New York State Legislature, we have 213 legislators, 150 assembly members, 63 senators. You are more likely to be removed from office upon conviction of a felony than you are to lose an election. We have like a 97% reelection rate in New York State. So you either die in office at the state level, or they haul you out in handcuffs, and then you're convicted of felonies. More people, that happens to more people than lose elections, and that's our fault. You know, all of us being just citizens that aren't paying attention and saying we need to do better. And so, you know, there's really a term limit every time there's an election. You know, we get to decide, do we want this person in office again? And you know what? Politicians need to You know, and listen, politician could be a dirty word, but it could also be a very honorable word, and that's why they call you the honorable. You know,
so long as we have good people in government, you have a good politician. It doesn't have to be a bad word. You're absolutely right about that. Which is why I think just civic engagement and getting our young people engaged in the community, in government from early on is where we have to start, and that way we don't have to see our electeds leaving in handcuffs. You know, we can actually let the democracy work the way it's supposed to work, and it has to start with our youth. And that's why I think, you know, just part of raising the awareness through mental health is a start. That way they can come out and they can be engaged and they can see who their electeds are. They can see what's going on in their communities, and they might say, oh, wow, I can do this. I want to be more involved. I want to, you know, maybe raise awareness for something else. Or I want to, you know, run for office one day because I'm inspired. That's what we need. So I'm just very excited.
Yeah, we have 4 million. We have 4 million. Is it 4 million or 40 million kids turning 18 every year? I think it's 4 million. I think it's 4 million. I think it's. I read it again today. It's 4 million people turning 18 years old every year eligible to vote.
But are they registering, and are they actually voting? And are they voting only when it's a huge federal election versus when, you know, it's local politics is really where the heart of everything is.
The beautiful thing is that we're seeing that happen. We're seeing these kids. You know, we just got to bring it closer locally.
We see it on the federal level.
But look at you.
Attention to Trump, right? We see it through social media. They're paying attention to what's going on there. So what we need to do now is find a way to get them engaged locally. And that's why I'm just happy that I can say, for me personally, I like going to the schools and talking to the kids, and they look at me like, what? She's our councilwoman? And they're like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. She's so young. And then they're like, wow. And tell me more. And then I have kids coming to City Hall on Tuesdays now just to see how we operate. And that, to me, is just a beautiful thing. If I can just inspire one person to be more engaged in the community, I think I've done a good job.
Dr. Bob, do you want to, in the spirit of AJ, speak?
I don't have a monitor.
Some of the people that just came that are in: Benjamin Anderson Jr., Donna Jackson, Lyndon Williams, the Honorable Lyndon Williams, Caitlin Gleason. Brenda L. Crump is posting like crazy because she is just wonderful like that. She's
yes, Brenda.
Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. is on. Anthony Osco Mitchell. AJ Woodson is still
Once
on.
more.
Salute. Did Damon post again?
Shout out to yeah, he's talking to other. Damon is talking to different people. He's talking to Anthony Osco Mitchell right now. Not Damon, AJ. Damon is on his way. Yeah. Damon is on his way. Yeah, he said he was feeding his kid. Glenn Butler is on, and
Sean Patterson Howard. Shout
Jack
out to
Toon.
Howard.
Jack Toon is on. Michael Holt is on as well. Elizabeth Cabada. Hi, Liz. Elizabeth Cabada, Ken Bright, Hector Santiago, and that would be it. Tanya Van Norman.
So our thanks again on behalf of AJ for the support of our listeners. It's much appreciated.
See you, man.
So Hector. Okay. The councilwoman has to go. She's got another engagement, but we just want to say thank you so much for coming. It's an honor. It's an honor to meet you. We've heard nothing but wonderful things about you, and you are more than welcome to come back and join us at any time. If you ever have something that, you know, like this walk that you have going on, you know, please feel free to come by and share it with us. I mean, we'll be more than happy to support you in all your endeavors.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. And again, May 12th, Chima Center, 10 o'clock. Please come out and support our walk.
And you are gorgeous, too, by the way. You are
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Nice
I've heard nothing but great things about you, too, by the way. Thank you for your service.
I'll see you later.
Take care.
Okay, honey. Bye-bye. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Wait. Give me a hug. You did fantastic. Maria Moretto just joined us, too. Hector, I have a couple of questions for you because you are the fantastic, the wonderful, the super fantastic guy that created and brought upon this national organization called Stop and Shake.
Yes.
Okay, so not for nothing, but Where have you been lately?
With the Stop and Shake, I started the Stop and Shake right after the Eric Garner and the Mike Brown movement. After what happened, the ruling that they wasn't charging the cops, there was a big uproar in Ferguson. A lot of people in Yonkers wanted to express that, so I kind of spearheaded the whole protest out here. Where at the protest, I remember we was using a bullhorn, and I told the officers, instead of standing around, why don't you go around meeting people, stop and shake. Yeah, so interested in, I was so upset, right? And I remember saying, so interested in stopping and frisking, go around and stop and shake people's hands, right? And they was like,
and
okay,
he started
cool.
a movement.
And they went and they started shaking people's hands, and then we offered it again after the walk, and for that moment, there was just like cavalry in our community. The police were talking, the community was talking. Kids were actually asking the officers, like, why are they shooting to kill? Asking the questions that they seeing online, or on their TVs or in their communities. So the cops was talking. So from then on, it's been like 4 years now with the Stop and Shake. But for the past few months, I kind of had to step back because I felt like the first 2-3 years, right?
You had to regroup.
Yeah, I had to kind of step back from everything because I felt like I was pushing the agenda in the police department, and not enough in my community. In my community, so I felt like I told the cops enough how to stop and shake. I didn't have to tell them no more, right? Like it's an icebreaker. It's a social icebreaker. So I felt like I kept, I had to, if I didn't make the appointment or schedule the next Stop and Shake station, they wouldn't. Or just a lot of little things that I say, you know what, I have to step back and kind of let them see what happens with, by me stepping back, if they will follow the tradition. And unfortunately, I haven't really seen much movement. A lot of people keep coming to me.
They're doing coffee with the cop.
Right,
They're doing a couple of other things.
See, an initiative like that was created, I think, in the Midwest somewhere, and they, sent out the curriculum to everywhere. And now people can run it themselves. And it's like, I created the Stop and Shake right here in Yonkers with you guys. I shouldn't have to always be there helping you along the way. So I kind of stepped back to see where it was. I started doing more speaking arrangements, speaking more in the community, talking about the importance of building community, the stopping. If you're not going to stop and shake a cop because you're making money on the block, I get it. I'm not going to tell you to stop and shake a cop, but stop and shake the people calling the cops on you. Because they're calling the cops on you because they can't have that conversation with you. So even if you just go out there and like build more community and use the Stop and Shake as an icebreaker in your community, you just have that sense of safety net into your community and not depend on calling the police immediately or something. Poppy from the block can tell you, hey, look, come outside and have a conversation with you and not be scared of you because now y'all had that dialogue. So
where's the program now?
Right now, I haven't, the program, like me personally, I'm the founder and creator of Stop and Shake, so I've been pushing in the community. This is
a young fella, folks, young fella that took the initiative. I started this 4 or 5 years ago, not knowing nothing, and that's why now I encourage so many people because there's such a disconnect with politics and community. They don't care about the politics. They're trying to survive. They're trying to live every day and try to get off the systematic oppression. With rent. There's just so many other issues that some people just don't have time to think of politics and follow a certain politician when you have to work 13 hours a day just to pay your rent and not even and then have a side hustle for food, So I just try to do things in my community to raise awareness that are identifiable as things that I went through. I started the Stop and Shake because I became an activist in Yonkers, and even after I changed my life and I was in city hall meetings and I was, trying to do the right thing, because we lived in the projects or because I lived in the hood, the cops will still stop me. Hey, where you going? What are you doing? And that just kind of annoyed me. Like, stop me and say, what's up? How you doing? What, how you been? What's going on? How was your night? Yeah. So that's really why I started the Stop and Shake. But I just feel like if they wanted to run it, if they could. They could hit me up, hey, Hector, let's schedule a Stop and Shake next month. I feel bad because a lot of people do call me and inbox me, hey, Hector, let's do Stop and Shake. And I'll go do it at a school, or I'll do it like I've done it at daycare in Mount Vernon. And, just a bunch of little things, and I love it that way. I've been doing a lot of speaking arrangements in schools. I went to Rikers and spoke there. It was pretty awesome. I spoke to the minor block.
I went with Kevin, the gentleman that runs 100 Suits. Kaepernick just donated a bunch of suits to him. He brought me into Rikers to talk to the minor block, and it was awesome. So I've really been doing things like that. I have a TED Talk coming at the end of this year.
Wow.
I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, you
What's
need.
that? Wait, what's that? Because he said, wow.
Ted is one of the
Yeah,
leading.
what's
Yeah. Say it, say it.
No,
say it.
go ahead, Doc.
Well, I mean, the TED Talk is one of the most prestigious national fora for cutting edge thinkers and leaders in
Very
various
nice.
fields. Yeah,
All right.
I mean, it really is a
And
tremendous
you say
honor.
it so humbly.
Yeah, you know, it's a TEDx talk. It's associated with we're doing it out in Terrytown. I have a few things that I want to talk about. I've
That's
already
nice.
written them down.
Mhm.
I'm just letting God pick
Kind of.
out which one I'm gonna talk about. But yeah, man, I got a few things coming this year.
So what are some of the things you got coming?
I have the TED Talk, of course. I'm super excited about that. I'm gonna definitely let everybody know about that. It's in Terrytown. I'm gonna keep everyone informed. I have the mental health walk coming up. I also have a program that I'm gonna be running at the PAL. And to kind of bring more community. We're gonna do an interpersonal communication program. To teach people in our community the importance of handshakes, eye contacts, intimacy without, not the social idea of intimacy, but the importance of just being connected with our community and knowing people. And through that, we're going to be having trips throughout Yonkers. We're going to be introducing them to police officers, millionaires. We're going to allow them to utilize the space. We want to get them CPR certified, opiate overdose certified, and just, be there for these kids. And it's going to be really awesome. I can't say much about it because we're still putting it together, but shout out to the PAL who's really trying to do the best. One thing I love about the PAL is that they're bringing in a lot of young women programming. And I think that's important in our community also, man. More programming for the young women and teenagers in our community. I know the young men know they have the YMCA and the Nepperhan Community Center. And
You're
just places,
right. You're absolutely right.
and they know
good
they
for
have
you.
these
Good
things.
for you for saying that.
But a young woman, even though the YWCA offers programming, because it serves as a housing, the
But
programming
it's more
there,
for
it's kind
single
of,
women that are homeless.
Right. So they try
Yeah,
as much
yeah.
as possible. Shout out to YWCA. They really try
Yes.
to bring in a bunch
Sean
of program-
Patterson
yeah.
Howard.
No, Sean's at the YM. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the YW. They've really been doing their
Really?
thing. Yeah, they're doing their thing, and but so we definitely need more programming for the young women of Yonkers. So that's one of the things we're gonna be working on, and.
If anybody wants to know more information on Stop and Shake and Hector Santiago, Brenda L. Crump has been posting it on the page, on People Before
Oh,
Politics page. She's also posted information on TED Talks. Donna Jackson said love
wow,
TED Talks.
nice.
So anybody wants
Shout
some
out
more
to Brenda,
information about
thanks.
them, Brenda L. Crump is the best.
Yeah,
She is a member of the show. I mean, she's a co-host
That's cool.
via the internet.
Right, that's cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
shout out to Brenda, man. So I'm just out here trying to do it, man. And that's it. I'm just a regular Joe, regular guy.
That's
trying
doing
to educate.
extraordinary things.
It is what it is. It's good to be recognized. I do it more
And
for
we
my
thank
kids,
you for that. And we
but-
thank you for that.
Shout
And
out
it's
to,
not, it
the
is what it
Department of
is. It
Mental
is,
Health.
yes.
That's great.
Yeah, shout out to the Department of Mental Health and the Board of Health of Westchester. I just got honored on Thursday. They gave me
All
a pretty
right.
cool
Congrats.
Congratulations.
definitely.
Yes.
Shout out to them. I appreciate that, man. That was last year. I couldn't even
That's
believe it.
beautiful.
They honored me for the walk to Albany.
All right. Yes. Tell us about that walk to Albany for those that don't know.
It was amazing. I will never do it again. Sorry, guys. Unless I'm with a few dozen people, but it was intense, man. It was a spiritual journey. I did it for my community.
What did you do?
I
Go
walked
ahead.
from Yonkers to Albany, 170 miles. It took me
Yes, you
6
did.
days. I did it to raise awareness on mental health. And to kind of get more resources and shine the light in Yonkers. When I got to Albany, Governor Cuomo was in Manhattan, which I wish I would have known. That's a much shorter walk.
He left because he didn't want to see you be held accountable.
He said, Hector's coming. I'm going to Manhattan.
Oh my God! I wish I would have known. That's such a shorter walk. But so yeah, I got there. But he was nice enough. He sent the commissioner of mental health for New York State.
Oh, okay.
And he
That's
sent
impressive.
one of his assistants. I would love, Governor Cuomo, if you're watching this, man, give me a call, send me an email, maybe a thank you for walking to Albany letter.
He watches. He watches
I
the
hope
show.
So. Yeah, let's have a conversation. But it was good once I got to Albany. But what was after the Albany thing, I came back and I stood shut. I didn't.
How'd you get back?
I took.
That's it.
Yeah, I took the train. Yo, shout out to Yonkers Voice actually paid for my train ride back.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Very nice.
All right,
Shout out to
Ben.
Yonkers Voice, man. They
Wait,
definitely.
did you not know how you were getting back?
No, you know what's funny? I didn't. I said, you know what? I know somebody will pick me. I said it on one of my lives.
He
I
went
said,
on blind
when
faith.
I got there, I said, if somebody wants to give me a ride back or something, hey. And he ended up calling me with the information for a train.
Did you like block it out so you knew where you were sleeping every night?
Well, yeah, I had checkpoints along the way at different places. I lived in Ossining once, so I had family and friends in Ossining that, friends, but family. I stood in Ossining. The mayor of Peekskill, well, he was a councilman at the time, Rainey. He's now
Andre
mayor. Shout
Rainey,
out
a
to
friend of the
Andre
show.
Rainey. No, Andre Rainey's amazing. He met me in Peekskill when I got there. I was exhausted. And he was
Good
actually...
God, you didn't even make it out the county and you were exhausted, huh?
I walked through 3 counties. I walked through 3 counties, 27 towns. It was amazing, man, and it was so much love. Shout out to Susan from the Yonkers Riverfront Library. She paid for a hotel stay for me also. Oh, wow. There was just so much love. I stood in a friend on Facebook I've never met, but he said, hey, if you're walking through my town, come by. And so much, it was really, I left to get funding for my community. And I feel like what I did was I broke the stigma on speaking on depression. There was so much people in the community who kind of reached out and came together just for this cause. I mean, I had people praying to Allah for me on my inbox, to Jesus. I mean, you name it, the gods were being prayed on for me. And that, to me, that spoke volume. When I can look at my inbox and see people from all different faiths, beliefs, communities, just praying for me, and because of the mission that I was carrying on my shoulders up there. And it was by the will of God and them that I made it. I remember I told everyone I was going to make it on 4 days. It took me 6. And on the 3rd, 4th day, I wanted to quit. I'm walking, and I was thinking of what to tell the community. At least I tried. It's about starting. It's about, getting out there. It was horrible. It was so bad, right? And so I sat down, and
He's so cute.
And I got some water. I'm relaxing, and it was a beautiful sight. I was up in Putnam County in somebody's yard, I think. They have acres, so... and I'm sitting there, and then I realized that I had no service on my phone, so I couldn't even call someone for help. And then the next rest stop was like a mile away. All right, so I was like, okay, am I gonna sit here and rot, or am I just gonna suck it up and keep walking? And I did that. I got up, I walked, I started laughing. I was like, you're a funny dude. I prayed, I spoke to God, and I got there. And it gave me, when I got there, I spoke to a veteran who suggested moleskin patches. And
Moleskin patches.
Yeah, man. And he was like, oh, I was in the Army, and I remember, I used to rub against my back of my, and that was what was happening to me. And once I put them patches on, man, he actually took me around the corner to the CVS. He was like, nah, come on, let me take you down the block. Come on, don't walk. I had just walked like 20 miles that day. And he took me to CVS and got me some moleskin patches. Really awesome guy. But along the way, man, one thing that spoke volume also was the amount of people I ran into. And, of course, I was talking to random people. And when I told them what I was doing, there were so many people who broke down crying and just told me their story. Young women and men who were cutters and showed me their scars. Seniors, I ran into a senior, I believe it was in Terrytown, who was sitting there, and she just started crying about what I was doing, and she expressed to me that she always feels alone, and no one ever comes talk to her. Her grandkids graduated, everyone, and she was going through depression, but it was of being alone for so long, and she just appreciated it. So I ran into this guy. He was 88 years old, a white guy, and he was talking about racism. I ran into so many amazing conversations, amazing people just going through the same thing I was going through. So it was just a real spiritual journey for myself. I realized that I needed it just as much as everybody else I was doing it for. So I won't do it again, though. It was amazing.
Not the walk part, but it's
But you're doing
obvious
another
that
one.
you are
You're doing another
continuing
one.
to-
Yeah,
of course.
Following
this
up,
walk
I mean, we
shorter,
gotta applaud
you know,
you for
and
that.
I'll always, you know,
Maybe not
fight
to
the fight
Albany,
for-
but maybe California next.
No, Amtrak. I'll Amtrak it to California. But yeah, man, you know, so it was definitely amazing. I will always be the voice for my community, you know, and just try to raise awareness any way possible. So, and the mental health walk is to kind of get, you know, there's a lot of times I was going through depression and I was in a funk. And it's sometimes just getting out your house, just getting outside, going to talk to somebody. I didn't really have family like that. It was my community. That's why I'm so community oriented. It was my community that raised me. You know, people in organizations talking to me, programs I went to in my community, people like you, you know, reaching out to me and just guiding me. Hey, Hector, look, here's a link to something you should be looking up or something, you know. So that's kind of what I want to bring to the community. Just remembering that we're here for each other. When we can't rely on the government, we got to rely on each other. And we got to come together. So get out your bed. Go talk to somebody. Be respectfully invasive.
Right. On that note, let me interrupt for a minute to give a shout out to one of our longtime associates, Cynthia Turnquest Jones, who just checked in on Facebook. Cynthia has played an integral role in the life of the station and Black Westchester
That's
as
right.
a whole.
She paved the road for me.
That's right.
Shout out to her.
Oh, yeah.
You know, one of the things that I thought was interesting about your comment about depression is the way that it's connected to the decline of community. Very often when people talk about some of the ills of capitalism, mainly we talk about it as a driving force of social inequality. But there's a lot of literature that suggests that amongst other things, there are other harms as well. And one of those harms is the real toll that it takes on people's psyche and their sense of self-esteem, especially in a time when, you know, employment opportunities are dwindling. Work life is characterized more and more by scarcity, insecurity. And if we're going to have a kind of revitalization of American society and civic engagement of the kind that's going to be necessary to reverse some of these problems, what we really need is community above all else. And I have to say here I wanted to shift back to Andy because one of the things into the labor movement and some of the upsurge in worker activity that we saw out in the Midwest, it suggests a possible, well, two things that I think are important. One criticism that's been made of the labor movement, the direction it's taken, is that it's become very much a special interest group like any other, concerned in a very narrow way with the interests of its members, separated from that of the community. And one of the interesting things that issues that I've heard raised in interviews with some of the strikers out in the Midwest is the call not just to increase teacher pay, but also to increase support for our educational system. Some of the things that were highlighted were precisely the kind of concerns that y'all expressed about possible layoffs in the city of Yonkers. It's not just teachers that are going to be affected, but all of the support personnel that are have a role in determining whether or not our kids get a good quality of life, a good quality education. And then they've called for increase in tuition, textbooks, right? Yeah. Let's get some more counselors and other kind of support staff to help us out, especially as we're dealing with an epidemic of violence. Which suggests for me, and here I was just curious, I don't know if you guys have any answers to this, but I wanted to throw this one your way, Andy, because I know as a member of the Working Families Party, your view has to be that electoral politics is one avenue towards improvement, but we've got to go beyond electoral politics.
Sure. You know, I spent the first part of my day at the Westchester Social Justice Forum. And and there were a lot of workshops on racial justice and on social justice issues. The workshop that I was facilitating with a close friend of mine was on fighting income inequality. And this was a workshop that was created by the Communication Workers of America, and to specifically engage the greater public, not just doing, it was a workshop that they teach to their members, but they bring out into the community. And I have had a great relationship with organized labor doing community events. Last year, I had a rally in support of public education, and this was we would rally every Monday for several months last year, and we called it Social Justice Mondays. And we had a rally in support of public education, and we had the president of NYSET at our rally, and we had a lot of community members. And my relationship with the labor community, with the organized labor community, has always been that there's always, yes, organized labor is to equalize the playing field as far as labor management relationships. You get to sit at the table and negotiate a contract as an equal. But my relationship with the labor community has been solid. I do not belong to a union. They have always embraced whenever there's been an outreach, whenever I have had a community rally, I've always been able to go to the labor community and get support and say, hey, listen, do you have a speaker? Could you bring people, because the community needs to know that you also believe in this. And then to bring it back to my support of Cynthia Nixon has been an activist in support of public education for the past 15 years. Now let's talk about what's going on in Yonkers specifically. We're looking at layoffs of maybe 221 people in the Yonkers schools. Governor Cuomo had been cutting back foundation aid starting in 2000, on the heels of the 2008 financial collapse. There was drastic cuts to foundation aid when he became governor. There's billions owed to communities throughout New York State, and it's because of cuts that Governor Cuomo initiated. And then there's the 2% tax cap, which, listen, no one likes to pay taxes, but we all enjoy the benefits of driving on public roads, of public education. So we have an educated public that will help us build our future. The 2% tax cap has never been a real 2% tax cap. It's been like this year, the effective tax cap is like 0.12%. It's way less than 1%. It's crippling our local communities. Funding our education through property taxes is the most regressive way to tax anything. Taxes, we should have our education funded through a progressive income tax. And listen, this way, if I make a lot of money next year, my tax liability will go up. But if I'm a self-employed person, if I make less money, my tax liability goes down. Why should the reason our seniors can't live in our communities anymore is because they'll raise a family, they'll pay their mortgage, and at the end, after their mortgage is paid off and their family is grown, they own a piece of property, and if they want to retire, they can't live here they can't retire and keep their house because the property taxes are killing people. We need to tax people in a progressive income tax, so it gives people a chance in New York State to stay here, even after your children are grown, even after your mortgage is paid off.
Remember the guy that ran for like New York State mayor off of the rent was too damn high?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my God, I remember him.
It's so true though, man. It's really hard out here, man, especially for seniors or even millennials. You know.
Yep.
It's hard. It's really hard.
I had to move out of Yonkers.
The cost of daycare alone. See, I have me and my daughter's mom go through this same thing. It's like, you know, to pay rent and childcare, it's so hard. Childcare is $300 a week.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. When my kids were in daycare, my wife had to go back to school when my son was 3 months old, and then he was in daycare from the time he was 3 months old until he entered kindergarten when he was 5 years old. It costs us about $10,000 a year. And it's not, and you know,
that's not adding the rent and everything
or the diapers, or
the
you know,
you have to supply the daycare with diapers and certain things, and then diapers at home, and so it's just crazy out here.
Andy, I wanted to know, could you explain to our audience exactly what a progressive income tax policy is and how it differs from the current tax policy that seems to be in favor here in the U.S.?
You know, we have our local taxes are primarily funded with property taxes. Yonkers has a benefit that, like, my community in Putnam County doesn't have, in that there's a tremendous commercial base that they can tap into. But if you buy a house in Yonkers, you pay property taxes, and that, you know, goes to fund the public education, the general budget. A progressive income tax is an income tax based on how much money you earn. And if you earn a progressive income tax, would be that if you're a low earner, your tax rate is lower, and as you move up the ladder of making more money, becoming more successful, you pay a higher percentage of income tax. No one has ever said, I don't want to be a millionaire because I'll pay too much money in taxes. People will kill to become a millionaire. A progressive tax rate is the fairest way, because it's a great equalizer, in that if you're having a good year, you pay a little more in taxes. And I'll give you an example. Social Security, you know, there's a cap. If you make more than $119,000 a year, you're not paying your Social Security taxes anymore. You cap out. You know, people talk about how Social Security, it's not sustainable. Well, one of the problems was it's not sustainable because we stole money from the Social Security. You know, we borrowed against it. It's like dipping into your piggy bank and slipping an IOU into the piggy bank. That there's no money in there. You know, just your IOU. If we there was a great bill in Congress to fully fund Social Security it was called the donut hole, and it's just like, think of a donut, and you pay Social Security up until it hits a certain level. Like right now, it's $119,000, and then you stop paying that Social Security tax, and it's like 6.5%, and your employer kicks in another 6.5%. But you stop paying that until it gets to another point, like the bottom of the top of the hole. Like now, you make $500,000, you start paying into it again. So like you get a break for like a few $100,000, but when you become rich, when you're talking $500,000 of income a year, you pay your Social Security taxes again, because because you live in a country that lets you make $500,000 a year, or $1 million a year, or $10 million. New York State has a millionaire's tax, and if you're an individual making, I think, $1.25 million, or a couple making $2.5 million, you pay a surcharge on that over your state income tax. There was a bill which Governor Cuomo was opposed to have an additional surcharge at $10 million, at $20 million, and at $100 million. And the idea was, if you're making $100 million, guess what? You pay a little more in taxes and Governor Cuomo, who is just all about his big money donors, his corporate real estate donors. You know, these are the same donors that also fund the Senate Republicans. It's he's against, not only is he against progressive income taxes, but he's against the surcharge for people making $100 million, because they get to live in New York, because they get to work in Wall Street, because they get to, you know, the benefits. So these are progressive taxes, and really it's like, and it's not, you know, listen, I think that it's not just like, we want to take your money. You're reaping the rewards of living in a place that lets you make $100 million a year, pay a little more in taxes, be a decent member of the community, and help the rest of us. Because you know what? When, you know, John F. Kennedy, he said, a rising tide lifts all ships. You know, it's just like when the bottom does better, everybody does better.
Off of us,
yeah, yeah, I know. It's And listen, people always say, "Hey, what are the Working Family Party? A bunch of socialists?" It's like, no, we're capitalists. We're just not the best at it. But you know, listen, I think that there is, you know, what's the biggest socialist institution in the country? It's the U.S. Army. You know, we or the military, not the Army singularly, but you know, we have socialized institutions. We have the military. We don't have to have tanks or nuclear missiles individually because we have the Army taking care of that. When I'm in trouble and my house is on fire, the fire department is a socialized institution. I don't need a fire truck because my community, whether it's volunteer or paid, says, you know what, it's to the greater good to all put our resources into getting some fire trucks so our community doesn't burn down.
And it's important to point out that fire companies originally were private during the colonial period here in the United States.
And so were police. You would have armed guards, you know, and and listen, some people still do have armed guards, but you know, there is a societal benefit. I drove here on roads that were paid for by public taxes because they were public roads. That's a form of socialism, and it's a really good one. And you know what? In the winter, our roads are plowed. That way I don't need to ski from place to place because people are like, well, you know, rich people have somebody plow the roads and drive in front of them plowing the roads. You know, these are things that are, we live in the world together. And you know what? We all of us, we're just on a rock flying through space. It's kind of crazy. It's like we should all take care of each other, right? We're all, in a really true sense, we're all brothers and sisters. I really believe that. And you know what? If I have to pay a little more so that if somebody's sick, they have health care, I believe in single-payer, universal health care. And you want to know something? It would be a tremendous boost to our economy because people would be able to start their own businesses. If you're lucky enough to have a job with healthcare, you can't just leave that and start your own business because you might get sick. But you know what? If everybody had access to healthcare like the rest of the world, you know, like Germany has a great economy. They're you know, models of capitalism, but they have universal healthcare. You know, these are common sense things, and it's just about being decent to each other and saying, you know what, it's better if you get sick, you can get care. That's the world I want to live in. I'm not going to say, well, I got mine, good luck if you get sick. I'll say, no, we're all in this together because it could be any of us.
I want to add two additional reasons why we, especially here in the U.S., need to consider embracing again the progressive taxation policy that we seem to have abandoned during the Reagan Revolution. And the first of these reasons, everyone, is because in a democratic society, the concentration of wealth can reach a point when it's all in the hands of a small elite where it is a jeopardy to democracy itself. One of the reasons why there seems to be a real stranglehold and a lock on policy making is because well-to-do public special interests seem to be able to dominate the attention of our politicians because of their funding of campaigns. And so this is only exacerbated when you have more lenient tax policies that allow the richest amongst us to take home the increasing share of profit that they're taking in these days.
Yeah. No, and you know what? Public financing of campaigns is a critical reform because you know what? You have to get money out of the campaigns. Citizens United was a terrible Supreme Court decision that just lets unlimited dark money come into campaigns. We need to get money out of campaigns because that way we will have politicians that are responsible to the people, not to the corporate special interests. And it's just critical. And unfortunately I do believe it's going to get worse before it gets better. But I am hopeful that it is going to get better because I see great things all over the place. I see movements happening and growing and people waking up and saying
the younger
this
generation,
isn't.
man.
Yes.
It's just such a conscious shift.
Yep.
We're definitely seeing, especially with what's going on with what happened in Florida, and seeing so many that march was one of the biggest marches in history, predominantly by young people, and that's the whole thing is if young people can feel a part of something, and that's even the sense of community gives people that empowerment to do something or speak up, and that's why I think it's important to teach youth interpersonal communication, the importance of handshakes, eye contact, speaking, because once you know these skills, you feel empowered. You feel like you can use these skills. In our community, when I'm teaching youth CPR trainings or opiate overdose trainings, this is things we go through in our community. We're walking by people overdosing. We could walk by somebody who collapses right in front of us. And the not knowing caused that. Don't say something. Don't just keep walking. It's not your business. But it's because we don't have the skills or tools to do anything. So if we can just open up people's eyes in the sense of knowing that they belong here and they have a place, they'll get that empowerment. And that's why I love what's going on with all the youth getting involved, all the schools.
What did it take? What did it take? It took yet another massacre in a school.
And that blows me away because look, in early 70s, right, 1970s, planes were getting hijacked to Cuba left and right. If you know, I think there was like 125 planes got hijacked during that era, and
from Cuba?
From United States, everyone was trying to get to Cuba. Everyone was trying to leave, right? Because everything was going to get shut down. So, at one point, the government was going to make a fake version of Bella Havana landing strip in Florida, but it came out to be too much money. They were just going to say, okay, yeah, we're going to and land in Florida, make people think it was Cuba, right? Wild, outrageous ideas that people came up with to stop people from hijacking planes. What they did, ban people from having guns and stuff on planes. They put security in airports, because this is a multi-billion-dollar industry, So, and here we got our kids getting massacred for years. Not just once or twice, for years. So it's like 125 planes got hijacked in 1 year. They changed the law on guns. Throughout the years, hundreds and thousands of students have been killed. But we still don't need strict.
The Second Amendment. When we can't say people have more of a right to have a gun than we have a right to have our kids be safe. And here's the thing: when people were talking about arming teachers, it's just like. Arming teachers, how about you arm them with textbooks? It's just like they're walking out of school in Oklahoma and Arizona and West Virginia because you won't pay them.
Right. It makes no sense.
But you want to give them guns to protect the kids. It's like there's a real disconnect there,
right.
and you know what? Anybody that's threatened by high school kids protesting. They're on the wrong side of history, and history will judge them harshly.
Right.
And you know what? And but why do the students have the power they have? Because they get together, and it's always when the people get together, they have the power, and that's what unions are about, and that's what community organizing is about. That's what the Working Families Party is about. So proud to work for them and with them and be a member of the Working Families Party.
I remember meeting Nixon. She was really awesome.
She's great.
Yeah, I took a picture with her. She was really awesome. Really, I talked to her about the Stop and Shake. She thought it was amazing. She told me to keep.
So you just saw her like last week in Yonkers?
No, I wish it was. It was actually last year, I believe. It was a few months ago.
Right, because she's been out there.
Yeah,
because she has been an
she's
activist.
out there.
Thank you for bringing that up.
She's definitely been out there. This is honestly, this was before last election. Honestly. It was right before last election, and I saw her. I was in Manhattan.
Before the 2016 election.
Yeah. Okay. So she's been out there, advocating for women's rights, the working class, medical marijuana, public education. I mean,
hopefully we'll be able to get her in here.
That'll be awesome. Yeah, she'll be. She's really doing her thing, I must say. So shout out to her.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, shout out to Shelly.
It'll be so awesome if Cynthia Nixon would be like
I want to give
Governor
another
Nixon.
quick shout out to Brenda L. Crump, because Brenda was nice enough during our discussion of progressive taxation
Yo, Brenda
policy.
is on a roll. Brenda's on
She even put a
Hey,
picture
Brenda
of
always
the
does it.
guy.
Yeah,
from
she came
Cynthia.
damn high. Brenda's awesome.
Oh my
That's
God,
funny,
I
right?
love her.
Yeah, but yeah, he was on a roll because rent is too damn high, and that was such a funny, but it spoke volume.
Yeah.
It spoke volume. It's so hard out here to like pay rent, child support, child care, and food, and just to survive with the wages. It's just horrible. And
AJ's
that's why I
been-
encourage that's why we have to take
Go
care of
ahead.
each other. I don't know. There was something that there was a program that was done in Harlem a long time ago. It was called the Time Bank. I don't know if anybody remembers that. This guy in Harlem, brilliant, right? So what he did, he went to everybody on one block, tried it out. Every single person on that block, asked them what they did, what was their skill, and how much time a week can they donate that. And he connected them so well within one block, where this neighbor was cutting his hair, she was babysitting their kids, she was carpooling them. I mean, he connected them so well that they all began to save money. They all the whole block just became self-sustainable off of a bartering system created. And I thought that was so impressive because it's so important for I know people that live in an apartment building with hundreds of neighbors and don't speak to not one person.
Right.
And sometimes these people are hungry. You need a ride somewhere.
Except to complain when somebody makes too much
You
noise.
make too much noise. They want to share something. But I think, I remember I try to teach these to my kids, right? So last year for Christmas, I put together, I went to 99-cent store. It cost me $5. Went to 99-cent store, bought a bunch of Christmas cards, mints. With my daughter, we wrote "Merry Christmas" from 2E and went to every apartment, dropped one off at their door, and I wanted my
that's
daughter to
sweet.
feel that sense of community. Few neighbors, next day knocked, "Hey, thank you, that was cute, that was adorable, that was thoughtful, I'm such and such from this apartment." But then I got some weird responses. One girl brought it back and said, "Hey, don't bring me things like this. My boyfriend wanted to know, where do I know you from?"
Wow.
And then this other guy said, "Why you're trying to act white?" And I said, "Wait, what?" I said, "How is this being white? This is being civil. This is my community."
It's not, my brother.
Right. I mean, listen.
I love that. He
You
said,
didn't.
"It's not
Andy
my
said,
brother."
I didn't give it.
It's not my
I didn't give any. I didn't get any.
Right. But this is just like the misconceptions we have in our community, those stigmas that I try to break. And, and I tell people, be respectfully invasive. I'm always like, "What's up? How you doing?" I'm that annoying neighbor that says good morning and good afternoon every time I see you in the building.
Nice.
And I think it's important for us to do that and come together and just support each other. Support the mom and pop shops. There's a lot of coffee shops in Yonkers.
Absolutely. I wanna take a break and give a shout out to a stalwart listener who has always supported us, Denise Branch, a comrade in the struggle from the city of Mount Vernon. What's up, Denise? How are you today?
AJ's been chiming in a little bit there too. Maybe you want to read some of his comments.
You could go ahead. I mean, even though your voice is not quite as heavy as mine, and AJ doesn't mind.
Oh, God. Let's stop.
AJ said, "Well said, Andy," about something that Andy was talking about. AJ said he appreciates all the love and well wishes from everyone that he's been getting. He said, "Great job, Andy, Dr. Bob, Lorraine, and Hector." He also said something really silly, something about that he's been enjoying watching this from the other side as opposed to being in. He might take a vacation for a couple of more weeks, which that's not funny,
we
AJ.
need you, AJ.
Brother. Bless up.
Also,
Bless
Brenda
up,
L. Crump posted Mount Vernon Public Library trustee Cynthia Turnquist Jones is running as a trustee May 8th, 2018 from 6 to 9 p.m. The poll location.
Cynthia's running for trustee.
Yes, poll location, Mount Vernon Public Library. She's, she is the queen of Black Westchester People Before Politics radio show.
Cynthia's the truth. Cynthia's the
Please come out and vote for her for Public Library trustee for Mount Vernon on May 8th from 6 to 9 at the Mount Vernon Public Library.
Shout
Cynthia
out to
Turnquist
Cynthia.
Jones.
Let's
Please
have
go vote.
some support from one of BW's own,
Yes.
Cynthia Turnquest
Yes,
Jones.
yes. She paved the way for. She's the queen. She's the queen of Black Westchester.
She's super awesome, super supportive, super supportive. I mean, everywhere. I see her in Manhattan, Bronx, Yonkers, Mount Vernon. Like, she's just everywhere. Super big in the community, man. Big ups to her, man. Keep doing your thing.
Brenda Crump is still posting. Thank God for Brenda. Thank you, Brenda.
Brenda is so awesome. She put up the time banking.
Okay, everyone. Yeah, there's someone on the phone right now. Welcome to People Before Politics. Please state your name and your purpose for calling.
This is AJ. What's his name?
Yeah! Yo, what a big
Hey, AJ, I can relax now.
I'm like, yo, it's like, yo, this is such a, I don't get to see the show. I'm always running all the different things. It's a joy to watch the show. And I'm going to tell you, I'm just such a good job. I might take the next 3-4 weeks.
That's not funny, AJ. That's not funny.
Nah. Stop
Well, don't take it too far, AJ.
It's not the same.
But it really is a credit to you, brother, that in your absence, the show can go on fairly smoothly because you've provided such a good role model for all of us, and we really do appreciate
That's
it, man,
right,
what
that's
community
right.
radio is supposed to be about.
Yeah, because me and David was like, oh,
Everyone
Is that
took a
why
day off.
David didn't come
We
by?
keep looking at the door for D.
Any minute now. Wait for it.
But, yo, Hector, man, keep doing what you're doing, man. We need more of the youth to get involved, seriously. Like, yo, I mean, you know, you have no idea how much you inspire me.
Thank you, bro.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying?
that's awesome.
By what you do.
Now I appreciate you. You definitely have supported from the jump. You know, you was one of, you know, a lot of people don't know before the protest. I didn't look for recognition. I didn't know what was NPR. I didn't know what was. I mean, I didn't know a lot of the language. And I remember you was one of the first write-ups I got, and I was so excited. I went home. I'm like, yo, Black Westchester wants to write about me, you know. And I was super excited. And so I appreciate you supporting constantly, man. It's been 5 years. And you keep doing your thing, man. Bless up. I'm sending you a lot of energy. And if you need soup or something, give me a call, and I'll come check you, bro.
AJ, while we got you on the line, brother, we know you were tuning in for the entire show. I'm curious if there's any important topics, points that we might have missed out on that you think we should give some attention to, and as the show, last minutes of the show, approach us.
Well, from what I heard, everything sounded good. You know, they kept coming in here poking and prodding me in between, you know what I'm saying, changing mandates and stuff. So, most of the show I heard, y'all did your thing. I'm like, yo, love Andy filled in and Bob and Rain just held there.
Right. And Brenda. Shout out to Brenda.
Oh, of course, shout out to Brenda.
Brenda always holds it down.
Oh, man, Brenda, I had to friend request her. Like,
Yeah, she. Oh, cute.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
I mean,
She's
she
the
was
whole
on
coast
it.
via
She
computer.
is on it, right? She was on it. Shout out.
Well, so I ain't gonna say one of those coming to the close of the show, but I just want to give you all a shout out and tell everybody did a great job, man. Everybody loves the show.
AJ.
Big
Yo,
love,
AJ, say what you usually say. You know, you can be doing anything, anywhere, anytime. Say that before you go.
Oh, it's not that time yet, though.
Yeah, I know it's not that time, but say it.
Okay.
Just,
Okay.
if you insist.
Say it without saying, it's the end of the show. But you know what you say. You're so cool. It won't be the same without it.
You can be doing anything, but you chose to ride with us. Black Westchester present the People Before Politics radio show every Sunday night, 6 to 8 on InMixRadio.com.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about.
You know what, AJ, man? I was going to do my best impression, too, man.
Nobody gonna do that.
Hold
I
on,
had
you
10
still
more
got
minutes to
time.
think
You still
about
got
it.
Nah.
Shout out to K. Jones, see you want to check in laughing. You know what I'm saying? So,
Definitely.
he agree with me. It's a great show. Like, we did. It was really a great show. And it's one of the first times I actually got to sit back and watch the show in its entirety. So, really great show. Y'all did a good job.
Well,
It's still not the same without you.
Yeah, it's a well-deserved rest, my brother, but we do look forward to your return to the show to resume your regular spot.
See
Yeah,
you
I
next
should be
time.
back around May 20th or something like that.
Don't play.
Yo, with that, I'm out. I'm gonna let y'all wrap it up.
All right,
yo,
good.
thanks a lot.
Good night. Rest up. We love you.
Listen, since we've got about 15 minutes or so left in the show, and
You only got 4 minutes. Oh,
no, yeah, right, we up there.
okay.
So Andy, I was wondering if we touched on some important issues related to Cynthia's upcoming gubernatorial race and working family party, but we've hardly exhausted the topic. I'm curious if there are any additional points that you think is important for our listeners to take up, as they're, contemplating making political choices and, things like that.
It's very interesting because I do want to say that Governor Cuomo has given Cynthia Nixon a lot of power. Because instead of being like, I don't know, maybe Barack Obama would have done like that when he heard that Cynthia Nixon was running for governor. Instead of saying something like, I loved her in Sex and the City, this is America, God bless America, anybody can run for anything. He went like crazy when he heard she was running for governor, and when the Working Families Party, as a state committee member, I was one of less than 200 people that got to vote on who our party would be endorsing for governor. I was lobbied very hard by the governor's staff. I had a in-person meeting with a high-level person in the governor's office. I had 4 telephone calls in the week before we had our state committee meeting where we endorsed Cynthia Nixon, and he wanted this very, very badly, and he must have been keeping track of who, and I was being non-committal whenever any of his campaign people, and this was all done on the campaign side. No one from a governmental office in their capacity as a government official called me up, because that would break campaign election laws. They're not allowed to do that. So this was all done on the campaign side, and the reality was that out of the 189 or 187, I'm not sure the exact number, it was either 187 or 189 state committee members that went to the meeting last week, over 150 voted in support of Cynthia Nixon. There were a few abstentions. There were a few people that were in support of the governor. But when he saw that the math was not on his side, the day before our state committee meeting, he said that he doesn't want our endorsement anymore, which it's kind of small and petty, and I think beneath someone who is actually the governor of New York State, because it's like saying, you can't fire me, I quit. Or you can't break up with me, I'm breaking up with you. But that's what he did the day before our convention. But then some unions who were affiliates and also funders of the Working Families Party left. He made it impossible for them to stay as members of our party. And then in a meeting with our executive director, Bill Lipton, he told the unions that if you go with the Working Families Party, lose my number. And the community groups that have also endorsed Cynthia Nixon, if you fund them, lose my number. And this has been widely reported in the press. I wasn't there.
Right.
But we have, who are the community groups that he's talking about? It's been specifically mentioned, Citizen Action New York. This is a community group that endorsed Cynthia Nixon a few days before the Working Families Party endorsed Cynthia Nixon. They work for low-income, the low-income community. They fight for racial justice. They fight for social justice. They fight for housing rights. They fight for legislation that's going to help the people that have no access to the political world. The people with no political voice. He threatened their funding. Make the road. He threatened their funding. These community groups that are very small. What's that?
With Fidelis? Something
Yeah.
Like
well, that's the insurance company Fidelis. They wanted to. There was a merger he sort of clawed back $1 billion from the Catholic charities. Well, I'm not going to use the word kickback because I don't know that. Unfortunately, there are things you can do that aren't the right thing to do, but are still illegal. A kickback would be illegal, so I'm not going to use that word. But you have the governor being a bully, and you have and why is it? Why did he freak out? Because Citizen Action New York endorsed Cynthia Nixon, and Make the Road endorsed Cynthia Nixon, and a whole host of community groups, and the Working Families Party. It's the people. He's not fighting with his corporate donors. He's not fighting the real estate, big money that he gets. As of January, he had a $30 million campaign war chest, all big money donors. And the only reason Cynthia Nixon had twice as many small donor contributions in 24 hours than he got in the previous 7 years is because he doesn't want that money. He doesn't want someone to give him $75 or $50 or $100.
Oh,
you get to donate, almost $60,000 to a gubernatorial race in New York State. It's absolutely insane. And when you got Cynthia Nixon, who's been a community activist for 15 years, who has been fighting for public education, has been fighting for affordable housing. She is of the people, by the people, and for the people, and that is why the community groups that represent the people are supporting Cynthia Nixon. That is why I'm supporting Cynthia Nixon. And you know what? I said it before, and I'm going to keep saying it. The people should not be afraid of the government. The government should be afraid of the people. Right. And Cynthia Nixon is of, by, and for the people. And that's why we're going to win this race.
Already won.
Man, she's definitely doing her thing.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have her here on People Before Politics,
she definitely got
in the near future.
Right. And this would give me an opportunity to remind all of our listeners that a number of grassroots organizations, especially law enforcement affiliated organizations, have given their endorsement to Shelley Myers in the upcoming special election that's going to take place on this Tuesday.
This Tuesday.
Shelley.
We want, to remind everyone that if we want to continue the momentum that's building for the blue wave that seems to be shifting the, political strength here in the country more towards progressive causes, that we'd urge everyone to get out there and cast their vote for Shelley. I know I'll be out there on Tuesday, and hopefully everyone else who's hears the sound of my voice will do so as well.
Sorry?
Yeah, Shelley's super awesome. She's for community. I think it takes so much for a politician. Well, it doesn't take much at all to be a civil servant, right? But cavalry at least. But I think that she's one of the few politicians I can say that genuinely listens to people and is humble, and she'll sit there and she'll stand corrected if need be, But I think as a politician, as a public servant, you need to be that type of person. You need to be able to stand corrected or humble yourself in the sense to listen to your constituents and remind yourself constantly that they're the ones that got you there.
She has a great connection with her constituents, and I've met a lot of politicians, and sometimes it's Mr. This, it's Mrs. That, it's Ms. That. There were two people that had a very special connection. You have George Latimer and Shelley. When people talk to them, it's always like George and Shelley, and it's always very heartfelt. You never.
I remember when I told her I was walking to Albany, right, and we had sat, and she of course I sat with her to see how she can help the walk. And she brought me we finished lunch, and she brought me right next door. We were sitting right here in Paxos and Getty Square. And she was like, "Let me buy your sneakers."
Okay, that'll help. Make sure you.
And she was like, her main concern was are you comfortable? What are you wearing on your feet? That was her main. She didn't. After everything, she asked me okay, do you have your route and stuff? But she was like, what are you wearing on your feet?
Let me tell you, she said that from experience, because I've had the the pleasure of knocking on doors with
Oh,
Shelley.
yeah.
I couldn't keep up with her. She
Yes,
is like
she's
so.
good, man. Shelley's amazing.
If Shelley wants to buy you
yeah.
sneakers, I bet you it helped you walk.
Listen, I made it to Albany, so
Yeah.
shout out to Shelley, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Shout
They
out to
definitely
Shelley.
worked.
You
You're
know,
right,
at
you're
the
right.
at the risk of being hated by most folks, I must say as a Republican that we also have another candidate running. Julie Killian is running. I'm not saying I'm supporting her, but I'm saying no, I'm not going to stop that because it's a democracy and we have choice. We have an option.
We can agree to disagree.
We of course we can agree to disagree, but I'm not saying I disagree with you either. I'm just saying that
No, you have to throw it
as
out
a
there, right.
Republican, I have to say that there is also another candidate, so people do have options to. I'm pretty sure who the winner's going to be, but I must say that she was here and she was very charming and she was very wonderful. And
That's
if
what
you
I
want-
heard.
And you can always go back to people Before Politics and watch the show. Check it out because she was very charming.
And you know,
know
listen,
what?
every
You know,
election.
people have an option.
Every
People-
election
yes, she
should
is.
be contested.
Yes, she
You know,
is.
it keeps democracy honest.
Thank you.
There
Thank
is
you for the
not
respect. Thank
there
you.
is
No,
no,
not
you're right, you're
anyone in office that shouldn't be challenged. It's important because you know what? If we just give people a pass and say, oh, well, you're going to win. Even I've run for office in the past, and I live in a community that is decidedly more conservative, more registered Republicans than Democrats. And you know what? It was important because I had issues with very specific things, and we were able to, even in electoral losses, I was able to win some things by shining a spotlight on certain issues. So I think every election, and you know what, if it's just a cakewalk, what are you winning? And it shouldn't be. These are important positions, and I really honestly believe that every election should be contested. It keeps democracy honest.
Thank you for the respect. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Absolutely, Lorraine. We believe in democratic competition.
Oh, God, I hate you, bro.
And I'm scared of you, Lorraine.
I'm kidding.
No, and I'm scared of you, Lorraine. That's why.
Before I get out of here, I want to give a quick shout out.
No, I like Shelly.
I want to remind everyone, May 12th, 10 a.m., come check us out, 435 Riverdale Avenue, Yonkers. Come walk with us, get a group, come through. Shout out to Grind14. They're going to be making T-shirts. It's going to say Grind for Mental Health.
Nice.
It's really cool. Come out, support. I want to give a shout out to 100 Sisters, who's constantly out there feeding the people, and everyone in Yonkers who's doing their thing. So shout out to them, and shout out to everyone on the show. I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
You got it, Bob.
I'm out of here.
Definitely. Well,
Not
listen.
yet. 1 minute.
Show's about winding down, everyone. So on behalf of my co-host Lorraine Lopez, Damon K. Jones, and AJ Woodson, the regular host of People Before Politics, I'd like to thank all the audience members for joining us. You could have been anywhere.
I'm talking about, yes. Yes.
But on your Sunday afternoon, but you decided to take your time out and be with us, and
That's
for that we are grateful. We want to welcome everyone back again next week from 6 to 8 p.m. to join us for our next
And
show.
AJ and Damon will be joining us.
Absolutely.
They'll be back next week.
That sounds pretty decisive.
Lorraine has decided.
So on that note, everyone,
Yo, check out Art Weekend. Art Week is coming up. Support the locals.
You could be anywhere, well, I have
Doing
no idea
anything
how
else?
to say that, but thank you for tuning in and thank you for putting up with us. And we had a pleasure. It was a great pleasure being here. And thank you, Andrew Falk, for being here. We really appreciate it. And you're always welcome here. You're part of the family.
I feel at home.
Thank you. And congratulations, Hector. You're doing an amazing job. We're honored to know you. And, you're always welcome back as well.
Friend
Yes,
to
La
the show.
Familia.
peace, everybody.
Peace.
2 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 And are not afraid to say it.